Good evening, everyone. My name is Jack Parker, and I'm your superintendent. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm going to really kick things off and pretty soon turn them over to Chris Medley, who is our assistant superintendent. Chris, give him a wave. He'll be handling a lot of the responsibilities for our reentry plan and has been working tirelessly to put some of these plans and thoughts and ideas together. Also
Mandy,
tonight
come
from Mount
here.
Vernon is our esteemed Director of
I can't
Community
get this to
Relations,
work.
Maria Bond. Maria, yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to share some thoughts about what we're planning to do for virtual learning for next school year. Chris will provide a few minutes of tips about what we're thinking and planning to do, and then basically open it up for conversation.
Why can't I hear it?
If you haven't participated in a Zoom with a large number of people, and hopefully we get several that want to join us and learn more, we just ask that you keep your microphone muted unless it's your turn to jump in and say something or ask a question. If you are able to turn your video on, that's great. I know that some of you are in a place where it's just not convenient to do, and we certainly understand that as well. But if you're able to put your video on, it's always nice to see faces. So I do want to just get things going with letting you know that we are absolutely committed to providing the best learning experiences for all of our students. And virtual learning may still be an option for us next year. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. We're here to talk about what that may look like and basically to determine what the interest is of our parents for their children in the Mount Vernon Community School District. So again, I am going to introduce our Assistant Superintendent, Chris Medley. And Chris, I will let you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. As we all know, this current school year has presented many unique challenges caused by the pandemic, and certainly we've had to make some adjustments and changes throughout the year to best accommodate our virtual learning students in this pandemic year. However, we've also been making plans for next year in order to put a much firmer footing in place around supporting our virtual learning students for next year, and that's what we're here to discuss tonight. It is important to note that while we prefer that every child attends in person, we do realize that there is a need sometimes because of obstacles and variables that sometimes factor in that actually virtual learning better serves a certain population of students for whatever reason. So we certainly want to make that option available for those people that are interested in that option. So again, the purpose of tonight's time together is really to kind of go over some of the more significant changes that we have planned for next year in order to best serve our virtual learning students. And so that's what I want to kind of go over first here in the next few minutes, is just highlight some of those more significant changes that we've made that we think will work better on both ends, both on the student's end from a learning experience standpoint and also from the teacher's end to deliver high quality instructional opportunities and learning experiences for our virtual students as well as our in-person students. So let me just dive right in and go over some of those significant changes. First of all, we believe that providing as much synchronous or in real-time instruction to our virtual learners is best practice. Again, it's most manageable on the teacher's end of things, and it's also much more engaging for our virtual learners to learn in real time alongside those in-person students. Therefore, then we would want our virtual students to check in with their teachers on time each day. So at the elementary level, they would check in at their normal class time around 7:30. If it's a middle school or high school student, they would check in with their first period teacher, receive that direct instruction from the teacher at the same time the in-person students are receiving that instruction as well. And then possibly then be given some independent time to maybe sign off for a brief period of time during that class period, work on those assignments, and then check back in with the teacher before going on to their next period class, and then basically just replicate that process throughout the day. It's also important to note that our virtual students next year will be taught by a regular classroom teacher, whether it's a teacher that's dedicated solely to that virtual population, or whether it's a teacher that is working with both in-person and virtual students simultaneously. We are absorbing our virtual support teachers and placing them back into a regular classroom setting this year. They've done a phenomenal job for us in supporting our virtual learners, but again, with the new framework that we have in place, we feel like the regular classroom teacher will be able to accommodate those needs for our virtual learners. It's also important to note that, again, because we are expecting them to participate in real time next year, that's how we'll take attendance. So again, when you check in with your teacher, either at the elementary level at the beginning of the day, or again throughout the day at the beginning of each period at the secondary level, that's how attendance will be taken. And that's going to be really important to get into that habit of participating in real time as much as possible throughout the year. Students will also be on their device through most of the day, if not if not most of the day, then definitely a significant portion of the day. Again, participating in those class discussions and activities, as well as obviously completing their assignments. We're also going to expect that our virtual students maintain a certain level of success academically as a virtual student. And if they're unable to meet our standards for attendance or academic success, much like we do with our in-person population, then it's very likely that the virtual students will be asked to come back and attend school in person. Another significant change that we are asking parents to commit to for next year is that if you are electing to sign your student up as a virtual learner next year, we're asking for an 18-week commitment before making a change. So in other words, if you sign your student up as a virtual student at the beginning of the year, you're basically locking them in as a virtual student for that first 9-week period and that second 9-week period. And if you choose to bring them back for the second half of the year, you will certainly have the opportunity to do so there after winter break, which I believe that second semester starts on January 4th. But again, unlike this year where we had a little bit more flexibility with choosing between virtual and in person at each 9-week juncture, this next year it would be an 18-week commitment before making any change. We've also decided that we're not going to be offering virtual learning for our kindergarten students. Our incoming kindergarten students will all be in person next year as well. And then if you saw the infographic, I'm going to try to share my screen right now, so just bear with me for a second. If you saw the infographic that we pushed out about a week or so ago that showed the different models that we're considering. Let me pull that up. So this was the infographic that we shared right after the board meeting last Monday night. Again, I'm going to go through each of these at each level. So starting with the elementary school, right now the two primary options that are being considered is one would be a virtual classroom where let's say we had a class full of 13 second graders from across the district. We would combine that class of 13 second graders into one cohort, so we could have a mix of kids from Fortville, McCordsville, and Mount Comfort to combine one second grade class, and then we would assign a second grade teacher to teach those 13 kids in that virtual classroom. The other approach would be if we didn't have enough to justify combining a group into one cohort, then we would simply just blend in our virtual students with our in-person population, much like we're doing right now at the elementary level, where we've got some in-person students also paired up with some virtual students, and our teachers are teaching both groups pretty much at the same time. That's if the numbers don't really dictate us having a cohort group of students at the elementary level. Then at the middle school level, there's three options that are being considered. The first would be the most preferable, quite honestly. Again, this is the easiest and most effective to manage on the teaching end, and that would be to again, have enough in a particular grade level to have a section of virtual students assigned to a teacher. And when I'm talking about that, particularly, I'm talking about our core subject areas. The 4 core subject areas at the middle school level would be math, English language arts, science, and social studies. So in this scenario, at the option A or model A would basically be that, let's say again, we had a 21 7th grade students elect to attend virtually. Then we would build the schedule where a 7th grade English language arts teacher would teach that group of students English the first period part of the day, and then that group of students would move to their 2nd period class, and they'd be assigned to a math teacher to have their math class during 2nd period. 3rd period would be that same group receiving their instruction in science, taught by a science teacher, and then the 4th period would be a social studies period, again, taught by a social studies teacher. Now, in addition to that, we would also offer some unified arts classes through our Indiana Online Academy. And again, unified arts would include PE, music, which would either be band or choir, and art. And then also, we also talked about the building in some time for extension for math and English skill building throughout the day as well, where we would build that into their schedule, and students would be expected to complete those activities through an online program, most likely Study Island or Exact Path, which is through Edmentum. Option B basically would split the class between in-person and virtual students. However, those virtual students would participate again in real time, so the class would be taught in a synchronous approach. This would allow the students to again receive their direct instruction from the classroom teacher at the same time. In-person students are also receiving that instruction. There'd also be opportunities for some interaction between the in-person and virtual students, possibly during that time of direct instruction. And then they also have the opportunity then at some point during that class period to sign off and work independently before checking back in with the teacher at the end of the period. The third option, option C, would be after taking attendance. So again, these virtual students would check in with their period by period teacher on time, and then basically the teacher would flip the classroom, meaning they would have a pre-recorded lesson to provide for all the students, and they would receive their instruction through a video, complete their online assignments that were pushed out by the teacher through Canvas. And then the students would obviously be able then to work independently, but also be able to check back in with the teacher throughout the period. Again, with options B and C, we would also still incorporate the supplemental classes through Indiana Online Academy, as well as those math and skill building extension classes that we talked about through Edmentum. And then for the high school, it would be pretty much the same model, or the same 3 models, I should say, as the middle school that I just discussed. However, here the difference would be that at the high school level, we would probably focus more on that direct instruction from a Mount Vernon teacher in our core areas such as Algebra 1, English 9, possibly English 10, physics, also known as decisions, quite frankly, are going to be driven by our numbers, because that's really is what's going to drive every decision that we make as far as how we can best serve our virtual learning population. So portion, and I'll remind everybody when we wrap things up, but beginning tomorrow, parents will have the opportunity to sign their students up to be virtual learners for next year. We'll have a 1-week window that will end on Tuesday, June 1st. So anytime between tomorrow and June 1st, you'll have the option to sign your student or students up to be virtual learners for next year. And again, this information is going to be really, really critical for us to then make decisions on how to best support your virtual learning student, meaning, how we can best staff each building, which model is going to be most effective for this population of students, and also what type of technology needs that we're going to need to purchase between now and the start of next school year, and other types of supports that we need to have in place to help, again, accommodate our virtual learning population. Dr. Parker, is there anything that I left out? Okay, I am seeing him shake his head no. So at this point, if it's okay with everybody, we'll open the floor up for questions. So what questions do we have?
Yeah, this is Amy Pressler, and I'll have a senior next year. My video stopped when you said English 9 for freshmen. So could you just reiterate that, how the high school is going to work?
Yeah. So again, first of all, thank you for attending, and I'm sorry you're having some technical issues, but basically what we talked about at the high school level, it's really going to be driven by overall numbers.
Okay.
And like I say, we anticipate, certain subject areas will probably have more numbers than others, like let's say Algebra 1 for our incoming freshmen, English 9, possibly English 10. And then, like I said, in science, most likely it would be biology 1 and ICP, or integrated chemistry and physics. So as a high school senior, we would probably utilize the Indiana Online Academy for that senior English need.
Okay. Yeah, because we're down to English and government, and the rest are electives.
Right, exactly. Which is why having this option of the online academy to supplement those needs, especially at the high school level, is going to be critical.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. What other questions?
Hi. I have a question. This is Shantae Lang. I'll have a 5th grader next year. I know you said that it's an 18-week commitment, but if we do sign up for the online option, and do you guys know if you're going to have a mask mandate next school year yet?
Do you want me to take that, Chris?
Sure.
We have not received guidance from the health department or the governor. If there is no mask mandate, the board has adopted a practice where if we get to 14% absence due to illness, that we would ask faculty and students to wear masks for the length of that time. And basically what we're trying to avoid is when you get to 20% absence for health reasons, the Board of Health closes us down. That's always been a rule. Matter of fact, the middle school a couple of years ago came pretty close to that. They got to 18%, which is really rare, but they got to 18% because they had a flu going through, and we were fighting it back and sanitizing surfaces every night. But what we have learned during this pandemic is that there are some things that are effective. So if we're allowed to, this is provisional, if we are allowed to, we will not be having a mask mandate next year, but we would implement mask on the possibility, which would not, I believe, happen very often at all, of getting up to 14% absence due to illness. The bottom line is, you'll have to ask us in July because we're not going to get guidance until then. We know that for sure. So sorry, but we're trying to make plans either way.
All right, that totally answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I currently have a freshman at the high school. My question is in regards to the curriculum that is provided to the students. So, with you guys being, I guess you could say, not necessarily hybrid, but you've got students that are virtual and students in class. Going into the next year, will the students basically have receive the same type of teaching. So you kind of explained it for the elementary to where you will be able to group kids together who are all virtual to, possibly pull them from different schools to, if they're all in the same grade levels, to have a virtual teacher. In the high school level, are you doing something similar? Or will they have the same teacher receiving the same type of instruction during that class time?
That's a great question. And again, it's unfortunately at every level, it's a little bit different just because of the different needs and the different impact on staffing and schedules and things like that. So what it may look like at one level, it necessarily doesn't transfer over to another level per se. But to answer your question, again, any class that we offer through Mount Vernon will be taught by a Mount Vernon teacher. Again, most likely those subjects that I mentioned earlier. Then if a student takes an Indiana Online Academy course, then they would basically then take that course through the academy. But again, those classes, the standards that are covered are very much aligned to the Indiana state standards, which is obviously what we're aligned to as well. But again, they would not receive their instruction directly through a Mount Vernon teacher for those online courses through the academy.
Understood. Can I ask a follow-up?
Absolutely.
So considering this is my second year with the high school, I'm unsure when schedules are sent out for the following year. So that as a parent, I can make the better decision to determine, virtual or in class, will schedules be provided to the students so that we can at least understand their what they signed up for or what they have proposed to sign up for, and if they got those classes to be able to determine in class or virtual. Will they receive that in that open period time that you guys are turning on tomorrow?
Yeah, the high school administration and the guidance department is working feverishly right now to try to build those schedules. But again, with this unknown factor of the virtual learning population, that's kind of that outstanding piece of information that still needs to be tied up. So, and again, I realize that impacts your decision. But hopefully through this process over the next week, we can provide a lot more clarity on what a schedule might look like for a high school student next year.
If a student is virtual and they're a high school student and they participate in sports and they wanted to participate in Block 0 weightlifting, is that a possibility?
That's a good question. I'm not sure that we've answered that question specifically yet. Dr. Parker, do you recall us addressing that particular question?
That's a great question that, quite frankly, we haven't thought of. I would guess we would draw the line of what's a class and what's not a class, and it's an extracurricular. So if weightlifting is a class, we'd probably consider it a class like all of the other ones. But that would be something we would certainly talk about and take under advisement. As a matter of fact, if I know Chris well enough, he's probably going to be talking to the high school folks tomorrow about this idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
My son is a freshman football player and he's fourth quarter virtual, and he wanted to participate with the Block 0 weightlifting, to get in shape. It's good for his health and everything else. And he wasn't able to, he was told. So I was hoping that this could be a possibility for him next year if he's virtual.
Yeah, again, ma'am, that's something that we can discuss internally, both at the district level and at the building level. I'll certainly, be talking with Mr. Dodd about this idea as well, and we can definitely follow up with you on that at some later time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Amy Pressler again. If Ben is virtual next year and then does one class through Indiana Academy and all the other 7 through you guys, I mean, he would still get a Mount Vernon diploma, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, that's what we want more, just as much as you guys do. We want all of our students that enroll, and that actually brings up a point that I failed to mention earlier. So again, this process is really kind of a two-step process. So the first step would be to fill out the survey and indicate whether or not you are electing to have your student attend as a virtual student or not next year. In this survey that's going to be pushed out within again, starting tomorrow and be open for 1 week. But when we then advertise for the online registration process for all students in July, that would be step 2, where even though you've already elected to have your student attend virtually, you would still need to complete that online registration process to enroll your son or daughter as a Mount Vernon student for next year. So thank you for bringing that point up. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, we just want to ensure he gets a Mount Vernon diploma.
We're on the same page, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So some of the English, like freshman English and those kinds of things, you guys already have that as an online class. Is senior English not an online class, or?
Our projection is that we probably won't have enough numbers to offer it as a Mount Vernon online class, which is why we'll most likely need to offer that through Indiana Online Academy.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
again, if the numbers would come back to where we could build it into the schedule and justify, having a dedicated class period of English 12 virtual students, then we would certainly do that. I'm not ruling that out, but again, we are anticipating that most of those numbers are going to be driven towards that Algebra 1, English 9, Biology 1 need.
Okay. Well, I know he had to redo like sophomore English, and we just did it through your online Clever.
Yeah, that would be something. Yeah, and again, Indiana Online Academy is something that's completely different than that credit recovery type of course that he took.
Oh, I see.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
I see the difference now. I didn't realize it was credit recovery. Okay,
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
These are great questions. Any other questions?
Well, Chris, why don't you remind them the survey times and how important it is that we get really good data. And then we'll see if there's any more questions after that and then sign off.
Absolutely. Yeah, so just to reiterate what I shared earlier, tomorrow we will push out a virtual learning registration survey. And basically that is your opportunity to elect to have your son or daughter attend next year as a virtual student. And then again, that will be open through next Tuesday, June 1st. And then, like I said just a few minutes ago, we would still want you to then go through that regular online registration process in July to officially enroll your student as a Mount Vernon student. Again, this information that we are collecting right now is extremely critical in helping us make those decisions on staffing, technology needs, and other supports to help, again, accommodate our virtual learners for next year, as we are trying to come up with the best way to offer that synchronous, real-time approach to their learning experiences next year.
Any other questions, guys? So if you do have any questions moving forward, you can reach out directly to any of us. Probably better to start with Chris Smedley. It's Chris with a C .Smedley at all the other stuff for Mount Vernon staff. And his email is on the website. You can find it. Again, he's our assistant superintendent. So if there are no further questions, I will simply sign off with thank you to Mr. Smedley for doing a great job of putting all this together and explaining it, and Maria and her team for helping with a great infographic. And a thank you to all of you for participating tonight. To learn more about what we're trying to figure out for next year, we'll keep you informed along the way. We'll certainly let you know the survey results in the next few weeks. And again, if any questions pop up in the next few days, don't hesitate to reach out to one of us. We'd be happy to engage directly with you individually. So with that said, I'm going to sign off, and thank you so much for participating tonight, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.